Yes, people, how are we doing? Welcome back to Catabolic Window, episode number 100 and something, because we're consistent as fuck and we've been here for ages, and for some reason you guys are still listening, which is very kind of you. This week we got a guest on, Mr. Paul Standell. Is that how you say your second name?
Yeah, that's how I tend to say it.
Okay. Is that wrong?
It's one of those surnames that I've never, even though it's my own surname, I'm still not convinced on how I'm supposed to say it. Because I would say Standell, but I have no qualms with people going Standell. And I'm like, maybe that's right. It's not a common name. It's not like, Jones or something, where if someone introduced themselves as Juanez, I'd be like, no, it's you're Jones, mate, right? So I say Standell, but I don't really care what people say.
I've occasionally gotten Sculpt, which is a good one. I'm like, how did you get there?
Sculpt?
Yeah.
Strong. I think you should go with that, to be honest. I think that's better than Schultz.
Yeah.
I don't know if my ancestors would be too proud. I think they'd be quite furious, to be honest.
Lord of the Rings orc. Skulls.
This is degenerated very, very quickly. Oh my god.
This is a strong intro.
Yeah.
You can tell it's a late podcast for us. Totally. Yeah.
So for the people who don't know Paul, firstly you need to follow him. It's Paul Standell, isn't it? On the Instagram _. Yeah, okay. Go and follow him now. He's got some hilarious stuff that's somewhat educational. You might learn something, who knows. So give the people a little bit of background on yourself.
So I've been PTing for 15 years. So sadly, far, far too long at this point. I did in-person stuff for the first 12 of those, and I'm primarily pretty much online these days. I have done an online thing for the last 10 years. So I juggled in-person and online for a good chunk of that before fully going online, let's say 3 years ago. My background much more recently is in the sort of biomechanics space for people who are familiar with RTS, and say Michael Goulden in the UK or Tom Purvis in the US type thing. I have a performing background, so I went to drama school many, many moons ago. So all those 15 years ago, just before I became a PT. And I actually initially became a PT because I was looking for a job that I would sort of enjoy around auditioning and around performing. And it was either this or driving instructing. And I'm very glad that I picked PT, because fuck knows how that plays out if I would have been a driving instructor. I'm a bit of a nerd at heart. And so actually me and Luke share a love of history. So I turned Luke on to the Rest is History podcast. So in fact, actually, stop listening to us. Just go and listen to the Rest is History podcast. I think that's probably one of the best things I can give you.
I encourage everyone to start with the one about Wojciech. That is the best podcast ever. They're making it into a movie.
Are they? What,
they're doing an animated movie of it. No, not them. Other people. Yeah,
because I really like the idea of Tom Holland and Dominic Sandbrook
just narrating it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of me. I spend a lot of time these days either educating PTs so they can have a career as a PT, or prepping PTs for things like photo shoots and shit like that, really.
I'm imagining some sort of alternate universe where, like, instead of going into biomechanics, you really went down the driving scene, and you've just got like some souped up car slammed with exhaust popping, like
just the greatest driving lessons you've ever seen in your life. You're like, there's fucking hookers and cocaine, right? There's like wheels back. It's just. Do you remember? Pimp My Ride is probably before your time. Is Pimp My Ride before your time?
I've heard the name.
I've seen it.
Yeah, don't worry. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, if Pimp My Ride did driving lessons, that's how. This is a terrible start. People have never heard me before, so so there you go. That's a bit of me.
Okay, something I'd be interested to hear a bit more about is how you sort of managed the transition from being in person and being sort of full there, and then going to I want to do online, and gradually progressing towards that. Because that's something I heard you speak about before. Okay,
so the thing is, it was really gradual, to be honest, and that's because I first started doing an online coaching thing in like 2014, maybe something like that. So this is like before Instagram was out really yet. Maybe it had launched, but it had like 7 users or something. And so when Instagram first came around, I was doing that thing that everyone did at the time of like you take a picture of your veg prep with hashtag peas, hashtag broccoli, hashtag meal prep, right? And stick that was content back then, right? And it was so good. And I had two packages. There was a £65 a month package and an £85 a month package. I don't really know what I thought the difference between the two packages was. I just thought you had to have two different price points. So I had, standard and premium. Not that there was literally fucking any difference between the two things. But I was doing that because I just got an online coach myself. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I could do those bits. And I think by that point, I'd done a photo shoot and a competition. And I was in person. I was working at a David Lloyd. I spent 6 years working at David Lloyd. So in terms of my own in-person career, it went a year at a leisure centre back in my hometown of Herefordshire. Then I moved to London, and I did 6 years at a David Lloyd just on the sort of border of London and Kent area called Beckenham or Bromley kind of area, for those who know it. Then I did a year in central London at a gym box, and then 4 years at a private studio, actually back towards kind of Beckenham way. And so I started doing an online thing, 3-4 years into being a PT, something kind of like that. But there was no plan. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just sort of posting pictures of me in a Gymshark vest and eating peas and that kind of thing. And, honestly, for about 6 years, it did not really grow. I would have anywhere from 5 to 10 clients. It'd be under £1,000 a month kind of income. There'd be some people often who I'd worked with or I knew at the gym anyway, and they kind of fancied a bit more of the get shredded thing. And for some reason I thought, online clients were more of the get shredded people than in person. I didn't know what I was doing. Right. And so it was this kind of gradual, bolt on. And then it just was in the background for a while. And it wasn't until it started getting towards 2019 to 2020. I think COVID actually was when it really coincides, when I started, I would say, figuring out online a little bit more. And you'd be surprised, for a person who went to drama school and who therefore should be reasonable on camera and should be okay at telling stories and things you would imagine from an actor. My content was god-awfully boring for fucking years because I was just writing. I'm also a bit of a science nerd. And so I went through years and years and years of being on PubMed all the time and reading research papers, thinking it was making me a better coach. It was not making me a better coach. It just made me sound fucking like a wanker. But that's what I was doing. And so now this research from Nadal Shaver on sleep is definitely going to really help me be a much better coach right now. The 5.5 hour sleep study versus 8.5 hour sleep study, really important to know, and super, super useful because, you get into that phase where you want to call everything sleep architecture and instead of just sleep. Just say sleep.
So wanky. Right? Oh my god!
But I've been through all those phases, right? and went through all that stuff, and that was fine. And I was doing 25, 30 hours of PT, got up to 35 and then was I don't want to be on kind of more than that actually, because trying to do some online thing and content and other bits, even though my content was crap and wasn't doing anything, I was still putting in 10, 15 hours of reading research and making this is even before Canva was out, but when then Canva becomes a thing, I was spending hours and hours making a Canva post from the PubMed study I'd read that would get all of 4 likes and no engagement because no one gave a shit about it.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good, right? If you ever want to laugh, just scroll back on my stuff until about 2019, 2018, etc. And then I had a conversation with a friend of mine at the time, which was just have you seen Russell Kane doing these lockdown skits where he's just kind of ranting at the camera? And I was like, oh, I could do that, right? And he was like, yeah, just do a fitness spin on it. It's you rant enough when we hang out in person. Why is none of that on your social media stuff? And I was like, good point. I could do that. I know what to do. So I started filming, and the first things really that I started making online, which started getting, I would say, a bit more traction from people I didn't know, was these things that I called fitness rants, which was me just taking the piss out of anything and everything I could think of, from CrossFit and bodybuilding to Crocs and clean eating. And, I'd film myself in a shower scrubbing a eagle and be like, is it clean enough? Right. Or whatever it was that would just mildly tickle me as I was trying to come up with content. And unsurprisingly, because social media is primarily an entertainment platform, started doing better than my really boring posts on sleep architecture, right? And so I was like, okay, maybe there's something in this, right? And now it still then took several years. And during this time, I'd gotten into the biomechanics kind of space, and I was learning more, and I was starting to kind of put this shit together of going, oh, I think most stuff is really boringly taught, and it's not very engaging, and it's people just saying the same words trying to sound smart, but it doesn't strike me as very compelling. I met Michael Goulden, one of my mentors to this day, and loved the way he taught and said things, and it was the complete antithesis of the really dry, boring, everyone's afraid to admit they don't know what perpendicular means, so we all just nod and say it back, and then if anyone, please don't check that I know what that, that kind of thing. And I was like, that's just, the job of a personal trainer isn't to be right about stuff, it's to be helpful. And it's like, if you can't help because you're so busy trying to use big words that you don't really understand, and you're ashamed to say, I don't understand, so I can't interrupt, to be like, I have no idea what you're saying, right? Then you're not going to be helpful with whatever you're listening to, because you don't know how to use it. And so I then, as a result of the mechanics stuff, I'd come across the Muscle Mentors and joined those guys as one of their educators. And I had enough, I think, life experience by this point I've been a PT for like 10 years by then. So even though, especially the early ones, I wasn't a very good PT, I was reasonably okay with people because I was just moderately outgoing. And so I would kind of chat, and that's half of the job of being a personal trainer, just for the record. It's like, one of the things I ask coaches, like, how much of your sessions in person, after someone's been with you for about 6 weeks, are you talking about fitness? And the answer is going to be like, fuck all. 5% of the session. Most of your session is spent talking about the weekend. You will be bored of telling people about your weekend by Tuesday afternoon, because you will have told the same story of what you did on the weekend 74 times by that point, and you're like, I just don't want to tell it anymore. You'll talk about the football teams you support, you'll talk about how shit Game of Thrones ended, or whatever TV show you're into. You'll talk about your love of Tango Diet Apple, because it is in fact the greatest of all diet drinks, right? Me and Luke both have this on the go right now. It's all this shit that coaches sometimes, I think, forget when they try and go online. They try and make everything like educational, informative, and it's like, hey, all that stuff that you do in your in-person shit, which is bonding, which is relationship building, where's all that in your content? Paul, where was all that in your content? Where was all this stuff that people could feel like, oh, I know Paul? Like, when I hang out with him in person, he makes the same kind of jokes, he talks about the same kind of shit. It's like, I think if you do a good job of making content, a lot of it is making content that is like the same shit you talk about in sessions that has nothing to do with fitness sometimes. So it's like, I know what games you play, I know what you're interested in, I know you, I want to know you. And that, once I started figuring that out, which sadly took a very long time to figure that out, right? Because it's a really obvious thing when you fucking say it now, right? But it took me years and years and years, and guidance and help from other people, and then bits of my own thoughts. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get this. So I would say that the first 10 years, I built a load of experience of what it's like to coach actual human beings, right? And what's it like to work with a 40-year-old accountant with a bit of a wine problem, right? And a couple of kids and not much else going on in life. And so wine is her one solace. Merlot is one of her macros. And whenever then I would listen to and see most of like the education space almost talking about being a coach, they were always talking about this like almost hypothetical high-end quote unquote stuff that I was like, that doesn't seem to matter. And I made the mistakes of giving my client, here's a client who's 40% body fat who has to take 1 gram of fish oil per % body fat. So apparently I'm just telling her she needs to take 40 grams of fish oil, 40 capsules of fish oil a day, right? Because she's insulin insensitive, and we need to improve that because Charles Poliquin told me so. He told me the eggs from the Dominican Republic were super anabolic and whatever else. And I parroted all that stuff because I thought it was right. And so I was gaining the experience, even if that experience was going like, this doesn't work like they were telling me it worked, right? And that's how I got into research. And then the research was a bit better than some of the other stuff, but it still wasn't helping as much as I hoped. And then mechanics was the first thing that really started helping, in a sense where I was like, oh, I can really adjust and manipulate exercises in a really effective way. by the time I'd got to that, I had a bunch of experience of actually just coaching people, and I'd taken them to photo shoots and all the rest, because you don't need mechanics to get photo shooting. Let's just be clear on that one, right? So I was like, oh, okay,
buddy, some weight and you'll be fine. And he does.
exactly, right? So I was like, okay, well, it's then this case of, why are people not talking about the fact that actually you don't need complicated nutrition physiology degrees? Because most people don't stick to their calories because they're lonely in the evening and cheesecake is their friend, right? And it's not to do with anything complicated. It's they don't stick to stuff because of psychology more than physiology. And during, one thing I hadn't mentioned so far is during this time, 10 years or so ago now, I was struggling with OCD. And I will often say that I learned more about coaching people from therapy than I ever did from like a fucking course or whatever, about, you know, listening to people and not trying to immediately solve problems. And I think if you're a coach, eventually I'll circle back to the answer of your original question, by the way, right?
This is the longest someone's ever gone to ask one question.
But I was like, you know, when I'm talking to younger coaches, I often try and say that, like, it's not just the solution you give that matters, but how you get that matters. So if you're talking to a client and they're not losing weight, and the answer behind why they're not losing weight is they're consuming too many calories relative to their expenditure, right? Like, that's technically the truth. There's whichever way we want to skin it, and for whatever reason, that's what's happening. And so if they are not losing weight, we need to be on or sticking to lower calories, right? You're like, okay, Janice, you're not fucking sticking to your calories. Janice, I need you to be on a fucking calorie deficit. For God's sake, Janice, right? So I could say that to Janice, or I could try and be like, well, Janice is a bit lonely right now because, you know, she's 43 and she's recently gone through a divorce, and she let herself go through the marriage a little bit because fucking everyone lets themselves go when they get into a relationship for a little bit and they've got a couple of kids. And so now she's like, oh shit, I'm single and someone has to see me naked in the future. And that's a terrifying thought for all concerned. So fuck, I need to join the gym. So I've hired Paul and I'm off to try and get in shape. And so off Janice goes, and she's doing well. And then after a couple of months and a few kilos down, or hopefully maybe a bit more than that in a few months, right? Stuff starts kind of slowing down, and you're like, oh, well, what's going on? Well, it's like, well, often it's that Janice is, you know, lonely again, and she's moved out of the house. And so, you know, when the kids aren't there or other stuff isn't going on and she's stressed from work, in the evening, just feeling like crap, it's like, I just want to release. I want to feel a little bit better. And man, wine and cheesecake, they make you feel better, right? Like, they just fucking do. And so because she feels so shit, that's what she's turning to of an evening. And so if I describe this to Janice, I'm like, look, I get it. You're fucking lonely and stressed and feeling shit. And like, after a long days with nothing else going on, you're turning to the wine. And like, I understand why. You fucking understand why. It's pretty obvious why. But, you know, you also hired me because you feel shit when you're naked with the lights on. And at some point, Janice, we need you to meet someone, right? Because you don't want to spend the rest of your life feeling like you're constantly having to fucking avoid having some sexy time, or at least with the fucking lights on, because you're ashamed of what you look like with you. That sucks. That's not what you want to be, and that's not what you want to do. But if we don't manage to, in those moments of an evening when you're feeling crappy, not reach for the wine and not reach for the cheesecake, then we're going to keep circling this drain right now. And you're going to keep feeling shit, and it's going to go on for months. And in a few more months' time, you're going to be like, I don't even remember half the wine I had. It fucking wasn't worth it. Why am I still stuck in this shit boat? Right. And so, you know, we ultimately, as a result of all this, even though it's completely understandable, Janice, we need to fucking stick to a calorie deficit somehow. Right. There's how that is received by a client is an entirely different prospect than just saying, Janice, you need to stick to a fucking calorie deficit. Because in the version where I spoke through and accurately, hopefully, described what Janice's life experience was like and why she was doing stuff, and I wasn't being judgmental with it, Janice went, yeah, that is why I'm doing that. And, oh, okay. And so then I can get to the answer that was always going to be the answer. The answer was always going to be, we need to stick to calories, right? But how you take someone there absolutely matters. If you're dealing with let's say a coach who wants to build an in-person business, and we need them to be out on the gym floor, talking to people, helping people, demonstrating their skills so that people actually value what they do. So, well, it's not fun to be out there on the gym floor helping strangers. No one's like, yay, I can't wait to talk to strangers. That's my favorite thing to do with my life. Like, that's no one's favorite thing to fucking do with your life, except for maybe Luke, because he's weird.
I get so much joy out of when I have a really awkward interaction with someone.
Yeah, that makes you weird,
Like
right?
where they just like blatantly don't want to have a conversation, and I'm like, yeah, okay, see you later, man. I just giggle to myself. It's so fun.
So that's a really good way of dealing with it. But I also promise you that's not how most people will feel about that interaction. The fact if they have an awkward interaction, it's going to eat at them, and they're like, oh my God, they fucking hate me. They think I'm a retard. They think I'm just a terrible trainer. But I'm not even in that great shape myself right now. So maybe they're thinking like, really? He's a fucking PT, right? And it's just really awkward. It's really draining. And part of me is scared that they're just going to be, fuck off and leave me alone, you turd, right? And so every time I go and have an interaction, I have to get over the internal monologue and all those feelings, and it's draining. And I do it a bit and I do it a bit, and it's taking it out of me. But I also need clients, and clients are only going to sign up with you if they know you exist and like you. And that means you kind of have to, meet them, because you're not entitled to people knowing who you are and liking you and thinking that you're able to help them with something that they struggle with. That's why we hire people. We hire people to help us with something we think we struggle with and need help with. That's my whole job. My job is to help people with things that they struggle with. Well, in person, you can find out that by sort of asking them and having conversations and being like, oh, my knee hurts when I'm doing something, or I can't feel my pecs when I do this. My glute never grows, or apparently only one glute in this version, not just glutes. My one glute never grows. I've got one pathetic right arch. Yeah, exactly. And so,
if that happened, that would be so bizarre.
So bizarre. Just one arse cheek, right? that person then kind of go, you find this thing by having a chat with them. Then you go, oh, I've got a few minutes free right now if you want some help, see if we can make that feel better. And then this is where you then need the skills. This is where mechanics stuff comes in to go like, I can help with those bits. And you then have to create an experience. This is something Luke does, where they go, oh yeah, my knee does feel better now. Or, oh yeah, I can feel my pecs working. Or I suddenly have one more arse cheek, and it's not just this whatever fucking one thing we had before going on was. And if you do that, people go, oh, I see the value in what you do because you've just shown it me. And as a result, it becomes much easier, I think, to sell PT. But it all starts with you have to be out there helping people. And the only reason I'm bringing that one up in this moment is going, well, PTs will hear that and they go, okay, I see that I need to do that. That makes sense. I can understand how that's going to help me bring in clients. But it still sucks for them sometimes to have to go out and do it. They've still got this internal monologue of fear and shit and, oh God, it's going to go terribly. And so just like dealing with Janice from accounts there, apparently she's from accounts. I don't think I made that as part of my story, but in my head, she's from accounts, right? Is in order to get the coach to want to stick to the thing that I know they need to do in order to benefit their own business, I still have to walk them through the process of, I don't just go, just fucking walk the floor. Now, with some clients, you can. With Luke, I can be like, Luke, just fucking walk the floor already. God damn it. Right? You're already doing it just fine. But with other clients, I might need to be a bit gentler with them and go, look, I know it fucking sucks. And I know it's a bit shitty to kind of get out there, but it's also shitty of being broke forever. Right? And like always having to worry about how am I going to pay the bills? And oh my God, if I lose even one more client, I'm completely fucked. And there's no more kind of income. And I'm going to be selling sexual favors on the street behind a skip. Right? And it's like, how do you meet that thing?
Quickly.
It really did. Right. But it's the same process, whoever you're dealing with. If you're coaching someone, like, I think there's an element of don't jump too quickly to the solution. How do you get to the solution absolutely matters. And I learned that more from therapy really than anything else. So I think that's true in content creation as well. Can you articulate the inner monologue of a person so well that they go, he fucking gets me. He really understands me. He knows what it's like to me, whatever. And if you can stitch all that shit together, circling back to the online kind of combo of the in-person stuff, it was this. Yeah, we did, right? It was this big mix of shit that like there was no, until a few years ago, I would say there was no like very clear strategy. I would say over the last few years, I sort of really since the end of the Muscle Mentors, I learned things in the Muscle Mentors about even just running a business and various other things. And, you know, that gave me more confidence of, okay, I can teach a whole group of people and people are interested sometimes in what I have to say or offer and do. And I have a bunch of experience here and this is all pretty good. And then it all kind of really started growing from there. And then, as I say, 3 years ago, I stopped doing in person. And really that's because I was just spread too thin. I was still trying to do 20 hours, give or take, of in-person PT. I hadn't taken on a new client in years. I just kept to the ones that I had because they've been with me for years and years and years. I was like, that's fine. That takes me over there. You know, I had 20 25, something like that, online people kind of by this point as clients. And I was doing online group education where we'd have, 50, 60 people come in on an intake, go through some stuff. We'd be running in-person stuff per day. So my income was kind of spread, right? It'd be like, here's 5 coming in person, and then here's another 4 coming in from online, and then here's another anywhere from 1 to 4 a month, depending on what we were kind of doing from that. But it was spread, what I would just say is a bit too thin. Like if you're doing in-person sessions Monday evening, Tuesday morning, Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, which is what I was doing kind of at the end, well, you still have to get there and then get back from it and then eat after those bits and then flip the switch in your head. It's like, right, it's time to write content and do other stuff. And now I've got to do this thing. It was just spread a bit thin. And so it got to that point where I was like, right, the income is built enough on these other things. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I'm clear with who I'm serving and what my shit is and how to go about doing that stuff. Which one of these makes the most sense to get rid of? Because which one is the most scalable of all this stuff? It was like, okay, well, it's got to be the in-person shit. And I also, by that point, because my audience is PTs, it helps to have had a bunch of experience as a PT, but it was like, well, 12 years of doing that is quite a lot. And so I was like, I don't think I need more in-person experience in order to help my audience by that point. And so, yeah, 3 years ago, it was then shift into the online space entirely.
What's something you miss about in person?
You can adjust things for people way better. Like, people sometimes think that online coaching is better than in-person coaching. I'm like, only if you've had shit in-person coaching, right? Like there's bits of in-person coaching that are infinitely and will always be better than online coaching because I'm into mechanics. So I'm a nerd for moment arms and force angles and what goes on anatomically in someone when we put them in a position and put forces through whatever part of the body we're trying to do. But I still do not know and cannot ever know how my client is experiencing something just because I put them in a position with a certain resistance profile and a certain setup. I can't know that. You can't know that, right? Because you will have clients where you set something up as far as you're concerned perfectly. They should be feeling their lat and they start telling you they feel their fucking left kneecap, their right earlobe, and they're getting some kind of aura coming through the room of their next door neighbor's dead cat or some shit. And you're like, how the fuck are you getting? Well, you're supposed to be feeling your lat. I've set you up perfectly. Look, the moment arm's great here. It follows the path of motion that you go through. I can see that yours is angled ever so slightly. So this is the plane of the scapula in this position for you. This is going to be chef's kiss. This is going to be fantastic. Here we go. I know my mechanics, right? And then you put
I had a great example of this today. So there was a guy on leg extension, one of my clients, and he's got a bit of a fucked up knee.
Yeah.
And over the last couple of weeks, we've played around it a little bit more. And we basically ended up today. So his leg is angled at like this sort of position. So the knee is fucking way out to the side. And he's coming like this because when they operated on his knee, they basically just fucked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's just like loads of bone floating around. And if it's dead on straight, aligned with the plane of the thing, it's like
feels like shit.
The expression on his face is like he's pushing through gristle the whole way.
Oh. Yeah, you go, one of the first things you will learn if you do RTS or work with good mechanics people is like, as Luke just called it, aligning the plane, right? So the machine wants to go in a particular direction, and I want your knee to go in the exact same direction most of the time because no shit, right? But you're going to find these clients. I've had a couple over the years where you have to deliberately misalign it because they're missing a part of the knee or there's a bunch of bone crap in the way or who knows kind of what else. And actually this should not be where your first thought of my client's knee hurts. I wonder if I just misalign stuff. Maybe that. No, usually it's my client's knee hurts. And if I align stuff better, it feels better. Right. But there's this deeper kind of layer that would take you a lot longer to figure out online than in person, where you might play around. You're like, what if you move it here? Okay, that feels better. And then you're trying to go, what does moving it there mean? Like, what's changed anatomically for them? What's changed with the forces that are coming into them by that subtle movement? So many clients struggle with foot things, let's call it, right? Which is they have knee issues, they have hip issues, sometimes they have back issues. And a lot of those things stem from the foot sometimes. Not always. Some people get too weird and they think everything stems from the fucking foot, right? But foot stuff is a thing. Trying to coach foot shit online is just fucking don't, right? Like the client isn't going to have the awareness, the sensitivity, or the tools to do the subtle motions that are required to get, I don't know, tibialis posterior, which is a plantar flexor and inverter that maybe doesn't do as much as it should. And so, well, how do I line that guy up? Well, he said plantar flexor, but then the calves are big plantar flexors. So if I just do a load of plantar flexion and it's not this kind of subtle bit of control of the cuneiforms fucking moving into inversion, well, what the fuck is a cuneiform? Like, most PTs have never heard of a cuneiform. If I said you've got 3 of them, there's a medial, intermediate, and a lateral cuneiform, I may as well be talking in a complete other language. I mean anything. And I deal with coaches, and they don't even know that. So when you're dealing with Janice from account, she doesn't know that. She's just got a bit of a foot. Right? There's some kind of, maybe there's a hoof down there. I don't know. Right? And it needs, but it needs to move, because if it doesn't, you know, when she actually starts doing stuff, if that inverter, which is sort of pulling the sole of your foot up, arching the foot a little bit, isn't able to do what it does, well, when we over pronate the foot, collapse the foot down, as it were, well, the tibia, the bone of the main bone of your shin, drops inward a little bit and rolls forward and inward, which then internally rotates the femur a little bit more. There's like a chain reaction of stuff that starts kind of going up, and that's not necessarily bad, but it could be bad, right? And your ability to see those things in real time, rather than hope they sent you a video during the check-in, right? And then hope that it's a good enough angle. They're wearing shoes, so I can't see half of that shit. And it's fucking, someone walks in front of the camera every bloody time, right? And so you see part of a kind of rep. And then even if I give feedback, they have to remember it for the next time they do that particular exercise. And they have to interpret what I've just said and know how to do that. And it's like, that's really hard. It's really, really hard. And so I often, actually, when I'm coaching online, pick simpler exercises, because at least to begin with, that's what is easier to coach, and people, or I'll give them things that were in their previous programs before they started with me, because I'm like, all right, maybe they kind of know vaguely how to do those. Let's have a look and let's try and get some kind of footage on that. Also, you don't want to just give people a bunch of exercises that they suck at, because that's not fun for anyone. They're also going to be like, what's the point in this fucking thing? And they won't do it right. So they'll definitely think, what's the fucking point in this thing? Whereas in person, man, you can do all that stuff pretty quickly and easily, and you can demonstrate, therefore, your value and skill really easily. So the things that I miss from in-person is that shit. Now, I still do a bunch of in-person teaching stuff, so I still kind of get to do some of that once a month or once every other month kind of thing. And I'll still occasionally get some of my online clients, if they live anywhere near me, to come see me in person every now and then, and just do an, you know, kind of one-off session where we'll look at some shit. And I'm thinking of adding more of that into services that I offer anyway, for kind of clients, make that a bit more of an official thing of like, right, come down, hang out for a couple of hours. We'll do some training. We'll hang out. We'll have a fucking coffee and a protein shake or whatever, right? And really play with those things, because the most persuasive shit you can ever do in any business is demonstrate something that feels better for someone, as a coach anyway. Like, we can talk about this shit about alignment of the plane of the knee. I promise you, it doesn't mean anything to anyone. But if we get it right and you go, oh my, what feels better? Fucking hell. That means something to you, right? That's the undeniable part. That's one of the things that hooked me into mechanics, was the first time Michael set me up on a leg extension. And I went, what the fuck? What was that? I've done leg extensions for 10 years. What the hell is that? That's not like anything I've ever done before. And I didn't necessarily know what he was doing, but man, the experience was persuasive enough that I was just like, I need to do that. I need to know how to do that. That's where it's at. And so I think that also makes it easier to sell in-person coaching than it is to sell online coaching. Online takes a lot longer to build up the trust that you're not full of shit, and that you're helpful, and you know that they know you and they like your content, and they see enough social proof to want to reach out. So I think we see a lot of coaches almost trying to run away from in-person, thinking that online is going to give them an easier life, a better life, more money, etc. I'm like, man, if you can't make in-person work, the odds of you making online work are slim. Because in-person,
you get loads of ads for that as well, Jack. Like that sort of thing. Like fuck in-person coaching. Like online is the dream.
I don't get ads about it.
Just like in Bali, fucking vibing.
Oh mate, it's always the I won't say the name, but it's always the mentors in Dubai.
Say the names.
Walking along the beach as they do it, yeah.
Where they're like, fucking what's the name? It's the Irish guy. They own the coach's mentorship. and they had have you guys, I don't know if you've caught up with the beef with these guys and the
No,
shit.
fill me in.
So I believe it's the coach. Yeah, it's a coach's mentorship. Here we go. Just before I dig into this, Paul, were you affiliated with them in any way?
I don't think so.
That'd have been awkward. Yeah. So apparently, this guy came out and he was a coach with the
2025, you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, that's the drama.
This is Jack's problem. There's a gay coach out there somewhere. I mean, I don't know what he's doing.
Can you imagine? But no, he came out and was like his dad's got diagnosed with cancer, and
I saw this.
Yeah, he messaged one of the guys of the coach's mentorship being like, "Hey, I can't make payment. I need to cancel." And the guy's reaction was, "He needs to pay anyway," and basically like took the guy to court to be like, "Your dad has cancer, but I don't care because you owe me fucking money."
No way.
Yeah, it's the
Also, it's what your dying dad would really want. He would want you to pay me cash. Like,
No
yeah,
way.
It's crazy.
is it not? It's Tony McAlevey, right? I'll name him.
Yeah.
Right. I have no fear of this, right? Yeah, no, you absolutely, or a fucking, Charlie Johnson gets a load of heat for similar dumb fucking shit where you're like, just spam 6,000 cold DMs a day, and eventually you'll fall on some poor unsuspecting soul who might pay you money for 1 month once, right? And it's like, that's a shit fucking business.
It's online coaching is weirdly kind of treated as like just this like kind of moneymaker. Rather than like, I spoke to a guy. I'm trying to
actual work.
Yeah. I spoke to a guy who like he like tapped on one of my like free resources, and I followed him up and was like, "Hey man, I see you're a coach. You're interested in learning a bit more about nutrition. What do you want to talk about?" And he was like, "Oh no, man, I left coaching. I was trying to get money in it, but I just wasn't getting anything. So I started working with AI. AI is going to be the new big thing, bro." And I was like, you just kind of jump from thing to thing. Yeah. You see money in, don't you? You're going to go to drop shipping, and then you're going to do crypto, and it's like, sell me a wooden chopping board with a steak on it or something.
I think like people lose sight of that. It takes years to get really good at something, and why should you be able to make a load of money from stuff you suck at? Yep. Like, what's wrong with thinking, okay, this is going to take me 5 years to feel like I'm good, right? And that's 5 years where you're doing like Luke and stuff is, where you're deliberately investing in good people and going to shit and learn and like all that stuff. It's like so many people want to bypass that, seemingly, especially in the fitness industry. I'm sure it's a human trait that goes beyond the fitness industry, but obviously we're in the fitness industry, so that's what we see it the most. But it's like
the way Dan and Mike frame it is great. Of like, how long would you have to study if you were a doctor to earn this money? And you're like, oh, okay, I see. Yeah, I'm not going to be earning 10K my second year as a coach.
But here's the crazy reality: is you can, right? And that's bloody mental. The fact that you could is outrageous, because 2 years into being a coach, you should not be earning 10K a month. I promise you, you're not worth it. You're not worth it yet, right? Like, your ability to help and solve a wide variety of problems and to be a human who's there for the amount of clients that you would require to have to do 10K a month, like, you're probably not that good. But what you will have done, if you've got a business within 2 years of get to 10K, is you're good at making content. You've probably got a decent physique yourself that others aspire to kind of have, and you're probably reasonable with people. And actually, turns out that goes a long way, right? Now, your retention probably isn't the greatest because you're not that great at coaching yet, right? So, there's an element of that. But like, it's just amazing that you can earn over 100K a year within a year or two of getting into this industry, and you actually can. Most won't. Right, I'll happily say that most people won't earn that much within that period of time. Most coaches, and I remember back even 3, 4, 5 years ago in the Muscle Mentors, we did a study, or not a study, it was a study. We did a survey of like our audience.
We did an Instagram poll.
Yeah, we did. We did an Instagram poll and a bunch of emails, and just did a bit of a survey and went like, how much, it was anonymous, so people didn't have to kind of say, but like, how much were they earning? And well over 50% of the 6,000 people on that email list, not all of whom filled it out, but I'm sure it was something like 500 people filled out. More than 50% earned less than 2K a month, right?
And they're all people which follow the muscle mentors, which means that they're interested in learning more.
Yeah.
So if that's what they're at,
like
the people that aren't are just gonna be fucked.
Yeah, and you go like the industry average, and I've not checked this in years, but it used to be true, and I would imagine it's still somewhat true. So even if it's not perfect, it's close enough. Like the industry average
over 3K a little while ago for PT.
Oh, I don't even mean income. I mean the industry average from like when someone qualifies as a PT to when they quit.
I know this. Yeah,
it's something like 18 months, right?
Yeah.
And that's skewed by old bastards like me who are 15 years in. So there's a whole bunch of people, I promise you, who've qualified and quit in a year. Because, you know, you can charge £50 an hour straight out the gate. It's like, you can, but you'll have 3 clients, none of whom will stay because you suck, because you've just qualified. And hate to break it to you, but a PT qualification is dog shit, right? So it doesn't really help you with anything. But you need it in order to start.
I felt like I was unlearning stuff. Like, I'm not even joking. I'm like, Luke, don't say anything. You'll upset them if you tell them that hamstrings aren't trained in a squat.
Yeah. It's all shit like that. And you go, oh, okay, fine. I've just got to get this qualification out of the way, and then on we go. But it's PT can be a really hard, quite lonely career. Like, in spite of the fact you're sort of around people all the time ish, like you're not really. You're having like 1 hour conversation on loop, right? So like every day is a combo of like, how was your weekend? Well, here's what I got up to. What have you got coming up on this weekend? I only saw you 2 days ago, so nothing has changed since the last time I saw you, and we have to fill this hour of shit outside of what we're doing. And then I need to be good at what I'm doing to help you. But I'm also, you know, if I have any clients, most of the clients who will come, or you'll find in those early days, they're not like super wanting to really change that much yet. So you'll be trying really hard. You'll be coming up with the best meal plans you can and trying to calculate macros and write the perfect training program for them based on what they like and don't like. And then they don't fucking stick to it. And you're like, fuck you, Carol. Right. And then you have conversations with yourself in the shower. Like, what could I have said to Carol to help her stick to the plan? Why didn't she fucking want, you know, and you're doing it in a gym where you're around other trainers who don't inspire you to be better. No one there seems to have a career. They might be lovely people. So I never mean it as like a criticism of them as people, but they're not people that you see and go, I want to do what they're doing. Like, that inspires me to have a career. Look at, you know, they're earning great money. They have a really nice life. They're in good nick themselves. I like them. They seem to be able to help so many different people with so many things. I want to follow that fucker, right? Like, that's not there. And I think our industry would do so much better with more of a kind of apprenticeship type model than the current model that it kind of has. But because those things aren't there, if you don't really go out of your way to look for them and find good people, like I found Michael Goulden, I found Tom Purvis, I found Dan and Mike, who you've kind of referenced. And I've had other mentors along the way as well, but those are the big ones for me. And I don't think it's coincidental that the more I invested in those good ones, the more I earned, the better I got at my job, the more confident I felt with those things. But it took me like 8 years before I found Michael, type thing. It was something in that kind of region. And it's not like I wasn't trying to find good people in that time. I'd gone on courses, I'd gone to workshops, remember reading too much PubMed, right? And all of that kind of shit. And yet it can be hard. And so people get burnt a little bit because they join a Tony McAlevey or a Charlie Johnson thing, and they give them shit, bollocks, fucking useless advice. The reason they have a business is they sell mainly to other coaches, and you know, these guys always have great rigs, right? So that's part of it. So they're selling part of, look, I look fantastic, and there's nothing wrong with that. You should lean in. Like, it's undeniable that being in better shape helps you with a business. It certainly doesn't hinder you, right? But you'll get some of these outliers who are great at social media and showing them and showing this aspirational life. And so they'll get some coaches to want to give them money, but that coach isn't them. They don't have the same physique they have. They don't have the same set of circumstances they've got going on. And their audience is not other coaches. It's Janice from fucking accounts again, who is treating Merlot as a food source. And so it's like, they don't learn about how to help those people. They don't learn how to bring business in, because those people have never been PTs. They haven't done 10, 12 years on a gym floor. They don't know how to help you with that stuff. What they know how to do is create a social media following and monetize it to PTs. And that's a whole different thing. But because people then fall into this because their marketing for that is usually pretty good, really touches on the pain points it needs to, these people get burnt. And then they, it cost me $5,000 to learn just to send 6,000 DMs, and fuck that. And now I'm kind of broke, and I don't think I can do this. And I'm leaving. I'm going to go sell BMWs. Right. And you see that shit all the time.
Well, the way that I look at it with like the money that I pay you for mentoring every month isn't like, oh, fuck, that really wounds me. It's, okay, I paid Paul this, and in our calls, he's helped me with this new client that's just signed up, this one that's struggling, that if we didn't fix this problem would probably drop off, and another guy that I'm chatting to and have got a consult for next week. So I've helped 3 people, which means that for that month, they all pay me money. And then they carry on with that because I'm doing a fucking good job. So it's like net way up.
Yeah. To be honest, it's doing what we said a minute ago of like, it's an apprenticeship model, right? It's because there aren't those ones where you work, you have to go find them and pay them, right? And be like, you're good at what you do, and I would like to sponge off you for a while because I want to know what you know so I can help like you help. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what any apprentice model would be in anything. It's like, you work as an electrician with a senior electrician for a while. And often it's not because you don't know how to wire a plug, because you know the basic bits. But it's when you get into that situation where you're like, this house is fucked and what the hell do I do here? Right. And gradually, when you're exposed to more and more, different clients and different issues, you start to build a confidence with that, because you're like, oh, that's a bit like this other one that we had. And then you try that thing and you're like, oh no, it's a bit different. That one didn't fucking work. Okay, let's try it.
Because I have like a starting point of, I've got these 4 people that have all had shit knees, and for 3 of them the same stuff worked, and then for this other one something else worked. So I can try all of these, and usually one of those things is at least a bit better. Then I ask you and tell you what happened, and you say, okay, try this as well.
Yeah. And
that's where I learn the most shit from, of like fixing somebody's problems. I love when there's somebody who's broken in a way I haven't fixed before.
Well, so this is why at some point this is why you have to go and do full RTS at some point, because if you ever, and you will, but when you get to what's called the mastery level of it, where you go to Oklahoma and hang out with Tom, and which basically means drinking with Tom.
How old is he now?
Tom, early 60s.
Oh yeah, he'll still be alive when I go to do it then.
I mean, he likes drinking, so you never know.
That's what I was thinking, because I didn't know how old he was.
But that guy, genuinely. So Tom, I fucking love Tom, but Tom will get through, I don't know, 10 Long Island iced teas if you're on a night out. With not even, when I say a night out, that sounds like you're going out. No, basically you go to you go to a few places. So the way mastery works, once you get to that level, there's only 6 of you and Tom, and it's 9 days with just you guys at the gym. 3 days are spent on lower body, 3 days on upper body, 3 days on spine. And some of that is looking at what he's done to machines and how he's adjusted machines and welded shit on and changed it, and exploring what you're trying to do there. Some of it is on, all right, we've got this client. What are we thinking? How are we exploring it? How are we queuing it? What are we doing? And basically everyone who goes to Tom's gym is old and dead, right? Like they're all buggered and buckled and missing a limb. And that's what interests Tom, because he's like, well, the normal stuff is kind of boring at this point. Tom was a bodybuilder through the 80s. Kind of, Venice Beach, Gold's Gym, all that kind of stuff. But has a sort of, I think his dad was an engineer, but has an engineering love. Doctor of Physical Therapy, or Physical Therapy. When he qualified, it wasn't actually called the Doctor of Physical Therapy, even though that is what it is now in the US. But so he's got a really interesting blend of bodybuilder, engineer, and physio, effectively kind of blended in. And he thinks our industry is full of shit for the most part, and he's not wrong, right? And Tom, I would not be doing what I'm doing without Tom, because Michael wouldn't be doing what he's doing without Tom, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without Michael. And so there's kind of like a lineage here. And Tom is also, for those more bodybuilding of you guys, that's like, the hypertrophy coach, Joe Bennett will be someone that you kind of know. BPAC is a Tom Purvis guy. It's not a huge.
I want you to do the spider diagram of that.
Yeah,
that would be insane.
Yeah, it would. Like, he's had a giant influence on. So when one of the great joys of my career is, I get to, Tom fucking sends me messages of memes, right? And like, we go out and I should sit. It's just me and him drinking at the bar, talking shit about films, and machines and whatever else kind of goes up. And I'm like, this is fucking weird, man. Like, that's
back
really
to exactly what you said at the start about how you're not actually talking about that much mechanics.
yeah, kind of, yeah. If you want to get on Tom's good book, just start talking to him about films and TV shows. He's got like an encyclopedic memory from those bits. But yeah, you'll go to Chili's, you'll go to a ridiculously named place called BJ's, which is genuinely.
I wonder what they do.
Yeah, well, they do a thing called a pizzuki, which is a pizza cookie, and unbelievable, just unbelievable.
Is it actually like, as in it's got dough and cheese and tomato,
So
or it's just a pizza?
There's a big one, and then there's these three. You get the trio, right? Get the trio. They're three smaller ones. They're about this big, and they're different cookies that are warm, and they put some ice cream and shit on the top of them, and they're unbelievable, right? But so you'll go for sushi.
Where's the pizza element?
It's just because they come out in like a little pizzery thing kind of vibe, but there's no actual pizza in it.
So it's like a pizza-sized cookie.
Yeah, that's the gist.
Oh, okay, right. I get you.
Hence the name, right? But
important that we cleared that up. That was really important.
Yeah, I was really confused because I was like, cookies are pizza shape.
Yeah, they're already round. What's going on? But yeah, you'll have sushi. You'll go to a place on what's called on the lake, and you'll hang out and you'll drink and you'll tell stories and hear stories of our industry is not that old. And there's another guy I love called Dan John, and Dan John talks in a sporting sense about falling in love with the roots of your sport. Right now, I think you can say the same thing of your profession. Like, you should, to some degree, fall in love with the roots of your profession, know the history of what you do and where it came from and where those people kind of came from and where bits are, because it's not that old. So they're all within living memory. You can know all those people, right? You can kind of go and meet and spend time with them, and it'll give you a much bigger appreciation of stuff. And to some degree, coming back to the point of, you aren't going to have mentors just at your gym. You'll be so lucky if you manage to have a really good person in you where you happen to work who is in that role for you, because there's such a small number of PTs that are actually at that level or at that point. So you kind of have to go and find them. But eventually they also then become peers as well as mentors. And you need those too, because some of the peers that I had 10 years ago when I was first sort of in the industry and coming up, for whatever that fucking means, right? Like, some of those people are doing really well in different places now. Like, Dan and Mike are the same age as me. They came up, I remember going to the same kind of things as them. I've known them for quite a long time. They're sort of mentors in one aspect and peers in another. And other people that I know are running, okay, this guy's running a videography thing, this one's doing this. And so the people that you meet when you go out of your way to improve in 10 years' time are often industry leading kind of people that you just get to call mates. That opens so many doors for you that just wouldn't be there if you didn't, again, start with going out of your way, going to workshops, meeting good people, and fucking spending time with them. And you'll get to a point, 10 years in or whatever, where the relationships that you've built really mean something to you and provide a lot of value in this career. Because, as we said earlier as well, it can be a really lonely career. Like, it's just you and then these clients that come in one at a time, and that's great, and you forge relationships with those people too. But you want sometimes like those relationships that you would have if you worked as a doctor, where there's the senior doctor you can bug for stuff and be like, oh, what's going on with this? And then they move somewhere else, and now a guy in New York, and now a guy over here, and you're like, if you've got a client who's traveling, like, do you know anyone in New York I could go and work out with? You're like, yeah, I do. Or I get to go to cool places because of people I know. I was in Oklahoma last month doing some foot and ankle stuff with Tom. And then, right. And then a friend of mine who I know from, because I've done mastery over with Tom 3 different times. So I've spent, over a month of my life out there, coming on for probably 2 nearly now. One of them, Sam, is a guy who runs a gym in Aspen in Colorado and does some stuff there. And he's like, dude, just come stay. I'll show you the gym. I'll show you what we kind of do. You can get a few days of skiing in. I was like, fuck yeah. Right. Let's go do that. There's really cool opportunities that will come from doing all this stuff. But I think it still all starts with get really good at what you do, right? Because you can't bullshit forever.
Where do you think the standard is worse then, now that you've done PT for a good time, you've been online for a good period of time? Do you think it's like the average PT is worse than the average person online, or vice versa? Let's not even include mentoring, because that's a shit show.
That is a good question.
And if you were to give a piece of advice to each of those people, Newish, what would you say?
Part of me feels like it's almost like arguing about like which
Would you rather get stabbed or shot?
yeah, or going like which mental illness produces the dumbest people? Like, you know what I mean? You're like, well, you know, have the Downs guys got it worse than the, you know, it'll be like, well, you know, no. So there's really shit in-person coaches and there's really shit online coaches. Technically, there's no qualification required at all to call yourself an online coach. Whereas there is at least a qualification sort of required to be a PT. So even having that barrier to entry might be enough to weed out some of the really shit ones who just think they're awesome because whatever. But I also know some people who kind of aren't technically PTs who are much better PTs than PTs, right? So I don't know. I think it doesn't matter that much because the average standard is shit in both. So then it's like, okay, well, what's the advice to an in-person one? Was that the question? What's the advice to an in-person one?
But to be honest, I think you've kind of said it either way, which is seek out knowledge from people that know more shit than you and learn from them, and you'll get good at both of them.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And that would be my advice in sort of any field. It's like, look, there are people who are where you want to be. Find the good ones, which admittedly is not always easy, and sponge off them as much as you can, which obviously means you're going to have to pay them, right? Because they have a living to make and all the rest of that kind of stuff too. But I think for most people, I would do a bunch of in-person stuff before I started worrying about doing online stuff, because doing online stuff is more than half content creation than it is coaching. So coaching is a coaching business. And, you know, if you go around the gym helping people with the skills that you learn from mechanicsy stuff and blah, 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 you'll have a business within a few months. 3 to 6 months, you should be doing 3, 4, maybe 5K, depending on where you are kind of in the country. And that's not unrealistic or me setting pie in the sky expectations. Luke is an example of what we're talking about.
That's if you go and speak to people and help them. It's not if you sit on your phone in the gym for 12 hours a day.
Yeah, right. So there's a thing you have to kind of go and do. But that part is easier and more in your control than, can I make content that anyone wants to interact with? Who is it for? How engaging is it? When you start out, you have no idea how to do any of those things because they're a completely separate set of skills. So if you're trying to be an online coach first, well, then that means you need to be learning both coaching and content. So it's 2 areas to suck at for a while you get better. I'm like, well, get good as being a coach first. Because I think like maybe 10% of coaches can succeed online, but I think like 95% can succeed in person. You know, the ceiling online is higher. There are people doing 20, 30, 40, 50K months online. I don't really know anyone doing 20, 30, 40K in person per month. But I know way more in-person people doing 5, 6, 7K than I know online people doing 20. I think it's way easier to get to those numbers. And that's a fucking nice life for the records, right? You know, 5K a month is 60K a year. That's not bad income, right? And you can do that within a year.
Yes, right? It's nothing to cry about, is it?
You know what I mean? You get another 4 clients and you've added another grand to your income. You're like, wait, like you can do that like in person. You can pick up a client within, 5 to 10 minutes of meeting them. If it's the right client at the right time, you're like, hey, you're like, oh yeah, I was thinking of PT. You help them a little bit. Let's do this. You're like, sweet. There's an extra £250 a month or whatever you're charging coming in right there and then. No one signs up online within 5 minutes of following you. It's like they follow you for months, if not years sometimes, before they reach out for things. And that's if you're good at making content. And when you start out, you won't be. So it's like, I think get good as a coach, get the experience, get better at that, get to a point where you're not worried about income. Because, when you're doing the 5, 6K a month kind of thing, you should be reinvesting a bunch of that and keeping getting better, just like Luke is. And I still, by the way, I still do that to this day. I spent last year was 25 grand on courses, mentoring, going to and I'm 15 years in and doing all right. But I still do it because it keeps me interested and my passion going. And the moment that starts dwindling, good luck keeping it going. I think you have to, once a quarter, go to something that inspires you or intrigues you or interests you and keeps you kind of going. So once a quarter, go to something and learn some shit, right? You need holidays and stuff kind of putting in there. But if you're doing 5K a month, let's say, yeah, but you should be able to put 10 grand aside a year for improving at what you do, because in doing that, that means next year you'll earn a bit more because you'll get to put your rates up a little bit, or you'll be able to help a few more people. And so that client you couldn't help who left, now you can help. And now they don't leave. And one of the old clients comes back a little bit. And, you build a reputation as being like, fucking Luke's the guy at that gym. And you'll know that starts happening when other coaches start coming and asking you, how are you doing it? And asking for advice within shit. And there's no secret to this stuff. It's like you find good people who are already doing what you want to do, and you stay with them for years, and you ride those coattails upwards. Because you can, I could save myself half the time in my own career. I could be where I'm at right now within half the time, right? Let's say it's 15 years. I can do it in 7. I couldn't do it in 2 to 5 because you still need the experience of time. I might be able to do financially what I'm doing, but the retention wouldn't be as good. The quality of what I do, I don't think would be as good. But I could still get here in a much faster period of time if I just found the right people earlier and invested in them earlier.
That's class. Right. Jack, have you got the quickfire questions?
Oh.
Emphasis on the quick.
I'll pull them up.
Okay. First one is one person from history that you would love to coach.
Yeah, Julius Caesar.
Okay.
Great question. That's a fantastic question. No one's asked me that. I love that question. Okay, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Julius Caesar was just the fucking guy, right? Like, I mean, he achieved so fucking much. He was a great writer, orator, general, politician. Like, he was a giant fucking womanizer. Like, he was a fashionista. Like, that dude liked to wear his toga fucking loose and cool. And I'm just like, phenomenal, right? I want to spend time with Julius Caesar. Yeah, he murdered a bunch of Gauls, but we'll just, let's look over that. So yeah, Julius Caesar.
Yeah, those would be some good sessions. Okay, nightmare meal plan. So like 4 meals that you would hate to eat.
Ah, sweet. Well, I know what the last meal would be. Cottage cheese. I fucking hate cottage cheese. I went through a period where I used to put cottage cheese in the final meal because it was high in casein, so slow digesting. And so that needed to be done, but I fucking hate it. So it'd be a mixture of, I don't know, like cottage cheese times 4. Celery can also fuck off. I hate celery. It's one of the worst things. I've been shredded lean for photo shoot stuff before, and you get M&S used to do these little crudité pots, which would be like carrot, pepper, and other stuff, and they were great when dieting because there's fuck all calories in the pot. I still wouldn't eat the celery. Those ones, even that part, I was like, this is minging. So it'd just be like cottage cheese and celery times 4, I think.
Yeah, that would be pretty gross. Jack, you pick one.
Okay, you put me on the spot. Oh my god. Okay, if you could invent any flavor supplement that is savory, what would it be? So you have to make like a savory protein powder or cream of rice or creatine, etc.
So like pizza flavored whey.
Yeah.
Savory.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds fucking awful. I don't even want my own
chicken soup whey protein.
What would you have? Cheese toasty?
Oh,
artificial cheese.
Might work. Maybe that works. Yeah, let's go with the cheese toast. I'd try it.
Salmon.
That
would be so bad.
Tim's tuna juice.
I have salmon most mornings. Like I have some salmon, eggs, and tomato-y kind of thing with like a bagel thin. So I like salmon, but imagine that. Yeah, just salmon flavored protein.
That would be
not. Like, why don't I just eat some salmon?
We've got one of my favorite questions, which might be a hard one to answer, but usually if someone does have an answer, it's a good one. Is there an insult that you've received that you're proud of? As in someone meant it in an insulting way, but you're really happy that they said that?
I wish I had an answer to that, but nothing is coming to mind. So it'd just be me making some shit up, trying to vaguely be funny.
They said I'm too much money and I'm too good at my job.
I know what it was.
He's just hung too well. You're like...
Would it be when you got attacked by Lion McDonald?
Oh, what did he call me? Yeah. Because I referenced Auschwitz in something.
Oh dear.
It was a post about the importance of sleep, and you're like, yes, this is why everyone at Auschwitz was fat.
Yeah, they didn't lose weight. Yeah, that's right. When people talk about sleep is so important for fat loss, I'm like, I'm not denying that it's useful for fat loss, but let's not act like it's always essential. It's not like the guys came out of Auschwitz fucking super obese or something. So I can't believe you would say. Well, and this is Lyle McDonald, who insults fucking everyone as the least sensitive human that's ever existed. So I think I just said something about it. It's like, would you have preferred that I use, the Bataan Death March? Like, should I have used? Right. I mean, what's the best insult?
7 other horrible things.
Yeah. What's the best shit insult you've heard that someone said to that? Do you remember any?
Oh God, you put me on the spot now.
I don't.
I think if I remember correctly, I think Christian had one, but I can't remember what it was.
That good, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? It changed my life. What you said.
Well, we'll move on. Next question.
Name 3 people you'd never coach. 3 people in industry. Call them out. Say you'd never coach them.
As in, I would never. Like, they're not welcome. Yeah. They can go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
In our industry or in any industry?
In
ours.
Who would I not ever want to coach? That's a good question. Who's in fitness that I think is a whack? Dave Asprey, right? And you have to say Asprey rather than Asprey because it's funnier to say it that way. Dave Asprey. There's a guy called Chris something who has like the wankiest morning routine that I've ever heard of and seen. I wish I could remember his name. So he can.
Okay.
He can fuck off. Who else would be an absolute
Liver King?
No, Liver King would be awesome, right? You're like, dude, I'm fucking. What am I going to say to you?
Check in voice note. What's up, Primal?
Yeah, exactly. Take more growth. We'll be fine. All right. Who would be shit? Who's like a pervy weirdo who needs kind of calling out?
Did you know Jack Piad, the coach? Did you ever get in that side of Insta?
No, I feel like some other people have told me his name.
He did the nude check-ins with people. So he would coach women for free if they did nude check-ins. He coached my old coach, and he was like absolutely shit with him as well. So there you go.
He would coach. How's that even come up? So how much does it cost? Well, it's $250 a month, or you could be naked on your check-in photos, and then it's free, baby. Like what? Like
I've got no idea how.
I think it was like something like we need to see a bit more detail. So if you could wear these check-ins, do these check-ins unclothed.
Wow.
Yeah, but he got exposed for it by.
You don't say.
Yeah, I was of all the words you could have used there.
I don't think Josh Bridgman was the guy who exposed him, but he definitely was the one who like publicized it. Oh, it might have been Goob, to be fair.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard his name from someone. Paul Carter can probably fuck off. I think me and Luke
yes,
in agreement.
One as well.
I almost did 9th rep today, and I had to kind of like make sure no one saw.
I'm sure. You realize that was utterly pointless, and you've just wasted a whole workout now, right? You're completely.
That question, it drives me mad when people. What do the first 10 reps of a 15 rep set do? Oh my god! I swear to God, if someone asks me that question one more time, it's just the most like. It's just a question. So I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. It's just set up to be like a really annoying question to answer because my response is you're asking the wrong question immediately.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because actually, I don't get people ask me that now, so it's kind of sucks for you guys that you that you get that where someone's like, "Look, I've read Paul Carter." And here's the funny thing about that: Chris Beardsley. I've done his mentorship twice with Chris, so I know Chris. I like Chris. Chris is a really smart, thoughtful, interesting guy. Doesn't really know anything about biomechanics, but his physio doesn't really. Right? I don't think he's ever likely to hear this, so sorry if you do, Chris. Right? But like. He's taken research. Every pressing thing is always a bench press or an incline press because it doesn't occur to him that there could be other ones. He's never worked with, Janice from accounts again, who's 40 and her shoulders hurt when she gets anywhere near those movements. And then it's taken from cadaver studies and going, well, on these 3 cadavers, this is what the internal moment arms are. So that must be what the case is for everybody. It's like, you need to go and do more cadavers in that case because go do cadaver shit. Like you will find variances between all those things. Like, And, they're all basically 80. So if you think that most of those Kazavas are representative of your jacked bodybuilder client or someone, it's like, no. We need more caution in what's been said with that. But at least I respect Chris. Like, I again, like Chris. Chris is a really smart, thoughtful. He's thought about why he's got the conclusions that he's got. But why he's teamed up with Paul Carter, I don't fucking know. Because that man is like someone fucking shaved a gorilla, jammed it with a bunch more gear, gave it a personality problem that means literally no one likes him, including his family, parents, and probably the whole country of his birth, and has decided to just start ranting into the void. He's just the most shitty human in the fitness industry. He treats everyone like shit. Like, he really looks down on everyone. He's just a flat cunt.
And you can ask him a normal question and he'll just block you.
Yeah. Have you seen the Instagram videos of people being like blocked? New accounts are blocked by Paul Carter.
yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, he's just insufferable.
He'll just be like, they'll say, "Why does soreness not matter for muscle growth?" And he'll be like, "I've posted about this. Just look."
Yeah.
And then you ask again, and you just get blocked.
Yeah. And the weird thing is, he's changed his mind on loads of different stuff, but he never acts like he's ever changed his mind on stuff. And like, the moment he's got a slightly different opinion, then it's immediately into like, how could anyone think otherwise? You're a fucking idiot, right? Like, Jesus, man. So yeah, Paul Carter can fuck off. I think we're all in agreement on that.
You're definitely the better Paul.
Thanks,
and
mate.
That is a good place to wrap it. So thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Where can people find more of the shit that you do?
So my home address is 5. No, so it actually is 5, by the way. I just wasn't going to continue that sentence. So yeah, Instagram is the easiest place to find us. So Paul_Standell, it's Standell, or at the PT Project, the Personal Trainer Project, is a company I run with friend and business partner James Sutton.
He's more jacked
to find. He is more jacked than me. He's fucking 7 foot jacked, and he's been on gear since he was 12, so it doesn't really count. Even if he hadn't, I think he'd be more jacked than me anyway. This is, if you ever see Jimbo now, this is Jimbo not jacked. You should go back and look at full jacked Jimbo. It's like, okay, that's a big dude. Yeah, that's where people can find me. So appreciate you having me on, lads.
Thank you so much for your time, mate. Seriously, honestly, it is an honor to have you on, and you given like an hour and a quarter of your time, especially being so busy. So thank you, mate, sincerely.
Pleasure, buddy.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening.